The conference room in the Galactic Military Alliance headquarters was filled with strange laughter. 12 different alien species sat around a massive floating table, their eyes fixed on the holographic display in the center. Commander Zaxlor of the Zentari Empire waved his forearms dramatically as he controlled the images. "Look at these Earth creatures," he said, his voice dripping with amusement. "They call this military training?" The hologram showed human soldiers crawling through thick mud under barbed wire. Rain poured down on them as they struggled forward, their faces covered in dirt and sweat. Another image appeared, showing soldiers climbing rope walls and carrying heavy logs on their shoulders. Lieutenant Vroktal, a tall, blue-skinned warrior from the Zentari military, shook his head. "They still use their bodies for everything. Don't they know about gravity lifts, energy shields, neural interfaces?" More laughter filled the room. A small gray alien with huge black eyes pointed at the screen. "They're hitting each other with their hands. In the Danubian Guard, we haven't used physical combat for 3,000 years. In the corner of the room, John Carter stood quietly. He was Earth's only representative in the Alliance, a liaison officer who had spent 6 months listening to these insults. His jaw tightened as he watched the aliens mock his people. But today was different. Today, he wasn't alone. Sitting next to Carter was a man the aliens hadn't noticed yet. Lieutenant Commander Alex Mason wore simple civilian clothes, but his eyes missed nothing. He watched every alien in the room, studied their movements, and listened to their words. Mason was a Navy SEAL, one of Earth's most elite warriors, and he had come for a very specific purpose. "The humans still use chemical propellant weapons," said a reptilian general from the Saurian Confederacy. "How primitive. Our youngest children play with more advanced toys." Commander Zaxlor changed the hologram again. This time it showed Navy SEALs training in the ocean, swimming through freezing water and diving from helicopters. They train to fight in water. Can you imagine? What will they do when they face our plasma cannons? Splash us? The room exploded with laughter again. Some aliens were laughing so hard they had to hold onto the table. A few made jokes in their own languages, but the meaning was clear from their gestures and tone. Carter felt his face grow hot with anger, but Mason put a hand on his shoulder. The SEAL's touch was calm and steady. His eyes met Carter's and he gave a small shake of his head. "Not yet. I've studied their military history," continued Commander Zaxlor. "These humans have been fighting each other with sticks and stones for thousands of years. They only reached space travel in the last century. How can they possibly think they belong in the Galactic Military Alliance? They shouldn't be here at all," agreed Vroktal. "The Alliance is for advanced civilizations, not for species that still rely on, what do they call it? Muscle power?" An insect-like alien clicked its mandibles. "I heard they need to eat 3 times a day just to maintain their bodies. How inefficient." Carter clenched his fists, but Mason remained perfectly calm. He had seen this before. People underestimating humans, judging them by their technology instead of their spirit. It always ended the same way. "Perhaps we should test these humans," suggested a floating jellyfish-like being. "Put them against our weakest recruit. Show them how far behind they really are." Commander Zaxlor's eyes lit up. "Excellent idea. We could make it a public demonstration. Let all the Alliance world see why humans don't belong here." The aliens nodded and murmured their agreement. They were already imagining the entertainment value of watching a human soldier fail against their superior technology. Mason leaned forward slightly, a small smile playing on his lips. Everything was going exactly as planned. The aliens had no idea what they were about to face. They saw only Earth's lack of advanced technology, not the iron will and adaptability that had made humans survive and thrive on their dangerous world. As the aliens continued their mockery, planning their demonstration, Alex Mason sat back and waited. Soon, very soon, they would learn why it was a mistake to judge a warrior by their tools instead of their spirit. The next day, the Great Hall of the Alliance was packed with representatives from every member world. Giant screens floated in the air, broadcasting the event across the galaxy. Millions of aliens watched from their home planets, eager to see the entertainment that Commander Zaxlor had promised. At the center of the hall stood a circular platform that rose 10 feet above the ground. Commander Zaxlor stood there, his purple scales gleaming under the bright lights. His forearms moved gracefully as he addressed the crowd. "Welcome, distinguished members of the Galactic Military Alliance." His voice boomed through the hall. "Today we witness a special demonstration. Our human observers claim their soldiers are worthy of joining our ranks." Laughter rippled through the audience. Many aliens made clicking sounds or flashed colors to show their amusement. "To prove our point," Zaxlor continued, "we offer them a simple challenge. Their best warrior against our worst recruit." The crowd cheered as a young Zentari soldier stepped onto the platform. Private Krelnar looked nervous. His blue skin had pale patches and his antennae drooped. He had failed the Zentari Military Academy 3 times and was known as the worst student in his class. "Even our failures are superior to Earth's finest," Zaxlor announced proudly. In the human section, John Carter stood up. The hall grew quiet as all eyes turned to him. Beside him, Alex Mason rose slowly, his movements controlled and precise. "We accept your challenge," Carter said clearly, "but we have one condition." Commander Zaxlor's face showed surprise. He hadn't expected the humans to negotiate. "What condition?" "We choose the type of contest," Carter replied. "A survival and extraction mission on planet Xerxes 7. Gasps echoed through the hall. Xerxes 7 was infamous throughout the galaxy. Its jungle environment was deadly, filled with poisonous plants, aggressive predators, and unpredictable weather. The planet's electromagnetic field interfered with most technology. "Perfect," Mason whispered to Carter. "Level playing field." Zaxlor hesitated. He hadn't expected this, but with millions watching, he couldn't back down without losing face. "Agreed," he said finally. "The mission parameters?" Carter stepped forward. "Each contestant starts at opposite ends of the jungle. They must survive for 72 hours, evade any hostile forces we place in the area, reach a crashed ship in the center of the zone, retrieve a data core, and return to the extraction point. Your primitive soldier will die on that planet," warned a four-eyed admiral from the crowd. Mason finally spoke. His voice was calm but carried across the silent hall. "We'll see." The aliens stared at him. Something in his tone made them uneasy. This human didn't show fear or doubt. He seemed confident. "When do we begin?" Krelnar asked nervously. "Tomorrow at dawn," Zaxlor declared. "This will prove once and for all that humans don't belong in our alliance." As the crowd dispersed, various alien military officers approached Krelnar, offering him advanced equipment. They loaded him with gravity boots that let him walk on any surface, an energy shield that could stop most weapons, smart guns that aimed themselves, and a suit that regulated temperature and provided nutrients. Mason watched quietly as the alien soldier became a walking arsenal of technology. When a Danebian officer offered him similar equipment, Mason shook his head. "No, thank you," he said politely. "I'll use standard human gear." The officer's gray skin turned darker with confusion. "But you'll be at a massive disadvantage." Mason smiled. "Will I?" That night, while Krelnar tested his new equipment, Mason sat in his quarters, carefully checking his basic kit. He had a combat knife, a simple rifle, water purification tablets, and standard survival gear. Nothing fancy, nothing that required batteries or computer chips. Carter watched him work. "Are you sure about this? Their technology is centuries ahead of ours." Mason looked up. "Technology fails, skills don't. These aliens rely too much on their toys. Tomorrow they'll learn what happens when those toys break." "The whole galaxy will be watching," Carter reminded him. "Good," Mason replied. "It's time they learned what humans are really capable of." As the artificial night settled over the Alliance headquarters, 2 warriors prepared for battle, one surrounded by the most advanced technology in the galaxy, the other carrying only the tools his ancestors might have recognized. The stage was set for a contest that would change the galaxy's view of humanity forever. Dawn broke over planet Xerxes 7, painting the sky in shades of green and orange. Two transport ships hovered above the dense jungle, each carrying one contestant. In the Alliance Command Center, hundreds of floating screens showed different angles of the planet's surface. Krell-Nar stood in his transport, weighed down by equipment. His advanced combat suit hummed with power. The gravity boots clicked against the metal floor. His helmet displayed streams of data about temperature, atmospheric, composition, and threat levels. 3 different weapons hung from his belt, each capable of destroying a small building. "Remember," his commanding officer said through the communicator, "you represent the superiority of the Zentari Empire. Show these primitive humans their place." Krell-Nar nodded, trying to hide his nervousness. Despite all his equipment, he had never been in real combat. The jungle below looked dark and threatening. 20 miles away, Mason stood in the other transport. He wore simple camouflage clothing and carried a basic pack. His rifle was an old model by galactic standards, using chemical propellants instead of energy beams. Carter stood beside him, looking worried. "You sure you don't want any of their tech? Not even a personal shield?" Mason checked his bootlaces, making sure they were tied properly. "A shield would make noise. It would need power. It would tell every creature down there exactly where I am." He picked up his combat knife, testing its edge with his thumb. "The best technology is the one that never fails. This knife doesn't need batteries. It won't short-circuit in the rain. It won't give away my position with energy signatures." "But their weapons," Carter started. "Will run out of power," Mason finished. "Will malfunction in the humidity. Will attract predators with their noise and light." He smiled. "Trust me, John. I've done this before." In the command center, Commander Zaxlor addressed the massive audience. "The rules are simple. Both contestants start at opposite edges of the jungle. They must reach the crashed ship in the center, retrieve the data core, and make it to the extraction point. We've placed 20 combat drones in the area to simulate enemy forces." The screens showed the drones, flying metal spheres armed with stun weapons. They would hunt both contestants equally. "The first one to complete the mission wins," Zaxlor continued. "If the human fails to return within 72 hours, we will assume he has died." Proving our point about human weakness, a countdown appeared on every screen. Mason took a deep breath, clearing his mind of everything except the mission. He had studied the planet's files during the night. He knew about the major predators, the weather patterns, the types of vegetation. Krell-Nar watched his helmet display, overwhelmed by the amount of information. His suit's computer was analyzing everything, suggesting routes, identifying threats, calculating probabilities. It was almost too much to process. 10 seconds, the automated voice announced. Mason closed his eyes, remembering his training. "Trust your instincts. Use the environment. Adapt and overcome. 5 seconds. Krell-Nar gripped his primary weapon tighter. His suit's systems were all green. Everything was functioning perfectly. Begin. Both transports opened their doors simultaneously. Krell-Nar activated his gravity boots and stepped out, floating gently down to the jungle floor. His landing was soft and controlled, exactly as the technology promised. Mason jumped without hesitation, using the trees to break his fall. He grabbed branches, swung from vines, and landed in a roll that brought him immediately into cover. No technology, just years of training and perfect body control. The moment Krell-Nar's boots touched the ground, every animal within a mile heard the electronic hum. Birds fled from the trees. Small creatures scurried into hiding. A pack of Xerxes raptors, the planet's apex predators, turned their heads toward the sound. Mason moved silently into the jungle, his footsteps barely disturbing the fallen leaves. He had already identified 3 edible plants and a source of fresh water just by observing his surroundings. In the command center, the aliens watched their screens intently, most focused on Krell-Nar's helmet camera, showing his high-tech equipment working perfectly. Few noticed the human disappearing into the jungle like a ghost. The game had begun, and the galaxy was watching. 6 hours into the mission, Krell-Nar was already in trouble. His advanced suit, designed for the clean environments of spaceships and cities, was struggling with the jungle's reality. Mud clogged the joints. Moisture seeped into the circuits. The humidity was higher than any of his equipment's tests had prepared for. Warning! His helmet display flashed. Shield generator efficiency at 60%. Krelnar pushed through thick vines, his gravity boots making strange noises with each step. The electromagnetic storms that regularly swept across Xerxes 7 were interfering with his equipment. His smart weapons kept losing their target locks and his communication system crackled with static. "Command, do you read me?" he called out. Only silence answered. 20 miles away, Mason moved like he was part of the jungle. He had rubbed mud on his skin to mask his scent and keep insects away. Leaves and vines woven into his clothing broke up his outline. He had found a game trail used by local animals and was following it carefully, knowing it would lead to water. In the command center, the aliens watched both screens with growing confusion. Krelnar's helmet camera showed a soldier fighting with his equipment, sweating and stumbling. But Mason's tracking beacon moved steadily through the jungle, avoiding natural hazards that Krelnar blundered into. "How is the human navigating without computer assistance?" asked a Danubian scientist. Commander Zaxalor frowned. "He must have some hidden technology we can't detect." "No, sir," said a monitoring technician. "Scans confirm he's using only basic equipment." Mason paused at a stream, studying the water carefully. He noticed small fish swimming in one area but avoiding another. Following the fish, he found clean water to refill his canteen. He added a purification tablet, waited the required time, then drank deeply. Krelnar's suit beeped urgently. Hydration system malfunction. Seek alternative water source. The alien soldier spotted a pool of water and approached it eagerly. His suit's scanners showed it was safe, but they couldn't detect the microscopic parasites that lived in stagnant water on Xerxes 7. He removed his helmet to drink, ignoring the basic survival rule. Never trust standing water in an unknown environment. As the first electromagnetic storm hit, Krelnar's equipment went haywire. His gravity boots suddenly reversed, slamming him into a tree. His weapons began firing randomly as their targeting systems failed. His shield flickered and died. "No, no, no," he shouted, frantically pressing buttons on his suit's control panel. Mason felt the storm coming before it hit. The air pressure changed and the animals grew quiet. He quickly found shelter in a small cave, grounding his metal equipment to prevent electrical damage. As lightning split the green sky, he remained safe and dry, using the time to rest and plan his route. "This is impossible," muttered Admiral Vexnor in the command center. "The human is outperforming our technology with primitive skills." The audience watched in stunned silence as Krelnar struggled to reset his systems. His confidence was gone, replaced by growing panic. Every sound made him jump. Every shadow seemed threatening. Mason emerged from his shelter after the storm passed. He checked his simple compass, confirmed his direction, and continued moving. He had covered 12 miles while Krelnar had managed only 5. A combat drone detected Krelnar first. His malfunctioning equipment lit up its sensors like a beacon. The drone fired a stun blast, but Krelnar's failing shield couldn't stop it. He fell to the ground, his suit's systems rebooting slowly. When a drone approached Mason's area, he heard its quiet humming from 50 yards away. He froze, controlling his breathing, becoming part of the jungle background. The drone passed within 10 feet of him but detected nothing. Its sensors were designed to find technology, not a human perfectly blended with nature. As night fell on Xerxes 7, the contrast became even clearer. Krelnar huddled in his failing suit, cold and hungry. His nutrient dispenser had jammed, and he didn't know how to find food in the jungle. Mason built a small, smokeless fire using techniques older than space travel. He cooked a fish he had caught with a handmade spear and prepared for the challenges of Day 2. The galaxy was beginning to understand. Sometimes the oldest skills were the most reliable. Day 2 dawned with a blood-red sun piercing through the jungle canopy. Krelnar woke up shivering. His suit's temperature control had failed during the night, and the jungle's cold had seeped into his bones. His stomach ached with hunger, and the contaminated water he had drunk was making him sick. Stumbling through the undergrowth, Krelnar didn't notice the signs that any trained jungle fighter would have seen. Broken twigs at regular heights, claw marks on tree trunks, the strange silence that fell over the forest as he approached a clearing. He stepped into the open space and froze. 6 Xerxian raptors emerged from the shadows, their scales shifting colors to match their surroundings. Each was the size of a large horse with razor-sharp claws and teeth designed for tearing flesh. Krelnar raised his weapon and pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. The moisture had finally shorted out the firing mechanism. He tried his backup weapon. It fired once, the energy beam going wide, then died with a pathetic whine. The raptors moved closer, communicating with clicks and whistles. They had never seen prey like this before, something that smelled alive but was covered in metal and plastic. A mile away, Mason heard the commotion. He had been tracking Krelnar since dawn, following the obvious trail of broken vegetation and equipment malfunctions. The human moved swiftly through the jungle, reading the signs of distress like a book. In the command center, the aliens watched in horror as Krelnar backed away from the predators. His mighty Zentari armor was useless. His advanced weapons were dead weight. All his technology couldn't save him from 6 hungry carnivores. "Send a rescue team!" someone shouted. Commander Zaxlor shook his head grimly. "The rules are clear, no interference." Krelnar ran, crashing through the jungle with the raptors in pursuit. His heavy equipment slowed him down. The gravity boots, once his pride, now felt like anchors on his feet. The raptors gained ground with every step. Suddenly, a sharp whistle cut through the air. The raptors stopped, their heads turning toward the sound. Another whistle came from a different direction, then another. The predators grew confused, their heads swiveling as they tried to locate the source. Mason had created the illusion of multiple threats using different bird calls. He threw rocks into the bushes, creating movement that drew the raptors' attention. Slowly, skillfully, he led them away from Krelnar, using their own hunting instincts against them. Once the raptors had moved far enough away, Mason circled back to find Krelnar collapsed against a tree, breathing heavily. The alien soldier didn't even notice the human approach until Mason was standing right in front of him. You saved me," Krelnar gasped. "Why?" Mason didn't answer. Instead, he began examining Krelnar's equipment, quickly identifying what could be salvaged and what was dead weight. He showed the alien how to remove the useless parts of his armor, making him lighter and more mobile. "Your weapons are finished," Mason said simply. "But you still have this." He tapped Krelnar's head. "Your brain is the best survival tool." For the rest of the day, Mason shadowed Krelnar without the alien knowing. He cleared dangerous animals from his path, marked safe trails, and even left edible fruits where Krelnar would find them. The human became a ghost protector, teaching through action rather than words. In the command center, the mood had changed completely. The arrogant laughter was gone, replaced by quiet respect. They watched Mason use psychology, biology, and simple tools to control the environment. He turned predators into allies, using their territorial nature to create safe zones. "He's not fighting the jungle," observed a Saurian biologist. "He's becoming part of it." Commander Zaxlor remained silent, his forearms crossed tightly. Everything he believed about human inferiority was crumbling before his eyes. As night fell, again, Krelnar made camp using techniques he had unconsciously learned by observing the signs Mason left for him. He built a proper fire, found safe water, and created basic shelter. He didn't realize his invisible teacher was watching from the shadows, nodding with approval. The hunter had become the protector, and the galaxy was learning that true strength wasn't always visible on a scanner. The morning of the 3rd day brought heavy rain to the jungle. Krelnar huddled under a makeshift shelter of large leaves, something he had learned to build by following the subtle clues Mason had left for him. His high-tech suit lay in pieces, around him most of it abandoned as useless weight. His communication device suddenly crackled to life. The storm had passed and the signal was clear for the first time in days. "Krelnar, this is Mason, do you copy?" The alien soldier jumped at the sound. You have been watching me?" "Keeping an eye on you," Mason's calm voice replied. Noticed. You're learning fast. Need a hand reaching the crash site? Pride swelled in Krelnar's chest. He was a Zentari warrior, even if a failed one. I don't need help from a primitive human. Suit yourself, Mason said. But there's a gorge ahead with venomous snakes. The safe crossing is 200 meters north of your current path. The communication went silent. Krelnar sat still, his pride warring with common sense. He had nearly died multiple times. Without his technology, he was lost and vulnerable. Yet this human seemed to move through the jungle like he owned it. An hour later, Krelnar reached the gorge. Sure enough, he could see the colorful scales of deadly snakes sunning themselves on the rocks. He turned north, finding the crossing point Mason had mentioned, a fallen tree that bridged the gap perfectly. As he crossed, he spotted something carved into the bark, a simple arrow pointing the way forward. Mason had been here first. In the command center, discussions had turned from mockery to analysis. Military experts from across the galaxy were studying Mason's techniques, trying to understand how one human with basic equipment was outperforming their best technology. He uses the environment as a weapon, explained Admiral Vektar. Every animal, every plant, every weather pattern becomes a tool in his hands. That afternoon, Krelnar faced his greatest challenge yet. A pack of juvenile raptors, different from the ones before, had cornered him against a cliff face. These were younger, more aggressive, and hunting in coordination. His remaining energy weapon had one shot left. His hand shook as he aimed at the lead raptor. Before he could fire, a figure dropped from the cliff above, landing between him and the predators. Mason stood with nothing but his combat knife, facing 6 deadly predators. He didn't attack or retreat. Instead, he made himself look bigger, spreading his arms wide. He stomped the ground in a specific rhythm and let out a sound that was neither human nor animal, something primal and terrifying. The raptors hesitated. Mason had perfectly mimicked the threat display of the planet's largest predator, a creature these young raptors instinctively feared. One by one they backed away, then turned and fled into the jungle. Krelnar stared in disbelief. How did you... Watched them for 2 days, Mason said, sheathing his knife. Learned their fears, used their instincts against them. He turned to face the alien. That's what humans do. We learn. We adapt. We survive. For the first time, Krelnar truly looked at the human. Mason's clothes were torn, his skin scratched and muddy, but his eyes were clear and alert. He carried himself with quiet confidence, not the arrogance of technology, but the assurance of skill. Why help me? Krelnar asked again. I mocked your people, called you primitive. Mason smiled. Because that's what warriors do. We complete the mission, and we don't leave anyone behind. He extended his hand. Even someone who started as an enemy can become an ally. Ready to finish this together? Krelnar looked at the offered hand. No glove, no armor, just flesh and bone backed by iron will. He grasped it firmly. Teach me, he said simply. In the command center, Commander Zaxlor watched this exchange with a complex expression. The human wasn't just winning the contest. He was winning hearts and minds, showing that true strength came from character, not equipment. The galaxy was learning that humans weren't primitive. They were adaptable, honorable, and far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Mason and Krelnar moved through the jungle together now, the human teaching the alien with every step. They reached the crashed spaceship just as the afternoon sun broke through the canopy. The vessel was half buried in mud and vines, its metal, hull twisted and scarred from the impact. My suit's scanners would have found the entrance easily, Krelnar said, looking at the wreckage. Your eyes can do the same job, Mason replied. He pointed to subtle signs. Bent metal that showed stress patterns, areas where small animals avoided, the way vines grew differently where heat still escaped from the ship's core. They found an access hatch partially hidden by vegetation. Krelnar tried his electronic key, but it was dead like the rest of his equipment. He stepped back, defeated. Mason examined the hatch carefully. He pulled out his knife and a small piece of wire he had salvaged earlier. Working patiently, he manipulated the manual override hidden beneath a panel that Krelnar hadn't even noticed. The door hatch opened with a grinding sound. Inside, the ship was dark and filled with stale air. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting strange shadows on the walls. "The data core is in the central computer room," Krelnar said. "But the security system..." As if on cue, 4 defense drones activated, emerging from wall panels. These were different from the ones outside, smaller, faster, and armed with energy weapons designed to kill, not stun. Krelnar raised his last functioning weapon and fired. The shot bounced harmlessly off the drone's adaptive shield. The machines immediately targeted both intruders, their weapons charging. "Get down," Mason shouted, pulling Krelnar behind a support beam as energy blasts scorched the air where they had stood. The drones advanced, their shields shimmering. They were programmed to adapt to any weapon used against them. In the command center, the aliens watched grimly. Even they couldn't disable these drones without specialized equipment. Mason studied the situation calmly. He noticed how the drones' shields pulsed in sync with the ship's flickering emergency lights. An idea formed. "Cover your ears," he told Krelnar. Using parts from Krelnar's discarded equipment and his own basic supplies, Mason created a crude electromagnetic pulse generator. He connected it to the ship's exposed power conduits, timing it perfectly with the shield fluctuations. The makeshift device activated with a sharp crack. The drone's shields flickered and died. Before they could adapt, Mason used the ship's own systems against them. He triggered the fire suppression system, filling the corridor with foam that shorted out the drone's circuits. The machines fell silent, sparking and twitching on the floor. "How did you know that would work?" Krelnar asked, amazed. "Everything has a weakness," Mason said. "You just have to observe and think." They reached the computer room without further incident. The data core was protected by a complex locking mechanism. Krelnar's electronic keys were useless, and the manual override required solving a series of mechanical puzzles. Mason studied the lock, then began working. His fingers moved precisely, feeling for subtle clicks and resistance points. He explained each step to Krelnar, showing how patience and attention to detail could overcome any security system. After 30 minutes of careful work, the final tumbler clicked into place. The protective case opened, revealing the glowing data core. Mason stepped back. "You should take it," he said to Krelnar. The alien hesitated. "But you solved all the challenges. You saved me multiple times. The victory is yours." "The mission was to retrieve the core," Mason replied. "Doesn't matter who carries it. We worked together. We succeeded together." In the command center, this simple act of generosity stunned the watching aliens more than all of Mason's survival skills. In their cultures, individual glory was everything. Sharing credit was seen as weakness. Krelnar took the data core with trembling hands. For the first time in his life, he felt like a real warrior, not because of technology or rank, but because he had earned respect through perseverance and humility. As they prepared to leave the ship, both knew the hardest part was still ahead. Reaching the extraction point with every drone in the area now hunting for the activated data core. The jungle seemed more dangerous now. Every drone in the area had detected the activated data core and was converging on their position. Mason and Krelnar could hear the humming of approaching machines from all directions. "They're tracking the core's energy signature," Krelnar said, fear creeping into his voice. Mason nodded. "Then we give them something else to track." He quickly gathered materials, metal fragments from the ship, some of Krelnar's broken equipment, and local minerals that gave off similar electromagnetic readings. Working fast, he created several decoy devices and scattered them in different directions. The drones' sensors went wild, unable to determine which signal was real. Half the swarm broke off to investigate the false trails. "Move quietly," Mason whispered. "Stay low. Use the storm." Another electromagnetic storm was building, and Mason had timed their escape perfectly. As lightning split the sky, the remaining drone's sensors became confused. Mason led Krelnar through a creek to mask their heat signatures, then across rocky ground that left no tracks. In the command center, the alien observers watched in amazement as the two worked as a perfect team. Krellner had learned to read Mason's hand signals, to move silently, to think like a survivor instead of relying on technology. They reached the extraction point just as the 72-hour deadline approached. The remaining drones had reorganized and were closing in fast. The extraction shuttle hovered overhead, its doors open. "Go!" Mason shouted to Krellnar. "Get the core to safety." But Krellnar refused to move. "Not without you." The drones opened fire. Mason pushed Krellnar toward the shuttle while returning fire with his rifle. The basic weapon couldn't penetrate the drone's shields, but the noise and muzzle flash confused their targeting systems. A blast caught Mason in the shoulder, spinning him around. Krellnar dropped the data core and ran back, grabbing the human and dragging him toward the shuttle. Together they stumbled aboard as the pilot lifted off, energy blasts scarring the hull. The shuttle rose through the atmosphere, leaving Xerxes 7 behind. Mason slumped against the wall, his wound bleeding but not fatal. Krellnar knelt beside him, applying first aid with techniques the human had taught him. "Why did you come back for me?" Mason asked, grimacing in pain. Krellnar smiled. "Because that's what warriors do. We don't leave anyone behind." When they arrived at the Alliance headquarters, the reception was unlike anything either had expected. Thousands of aliens stood in silence as Mason and Krellnar emerged from the shuttle together, both battered but victorious. Commander Zaxalor stepped forward, his forearms spread in a gesture of respect. "We owe you an apology," he said to Mason. "We judged your species by your technology, not by your character. We were wrong." Mason stood straight despite his injury. "Technology is a tool. Character is what defines a warrior." The commander turned to address the assembled crowd. "Today we learned that humans possess something more valuable than advanced weapons or shields. They have adaptability, honor, and the will to never give up. These qualities make them not just worthy allies, but essential ones." The hall erupted in applause. Clicks, whistles, flashing colors, and other alien expressions of approval. For the first time in Alliance history, a human received a standing ovation. In the following weeks, Earth was offered full membership in the Galactic Military Alliance. Human advisors were requested by every major military force. The story of Mason and Krellnar spread across the galaxy, becoming legend. But the most important change happened in military academies throughout the Alliance. Alongside courses in advanced weaponry and quantum tactics, cadets now studied something new: human survival skills, adaptability training, and the ancient art of using one's environment as an ally. Years later, veterans would tell stories about the day the galaxy learned its greatest lesson: that true strength lies not in the weapons you carry, but in the spirit that drives you forward. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, former enemies worked side by side, united by respect, earned through mud, sweat, and the unbreakable human spirit that had finally found its place among the stars.